Hello and welcome to a bit of a damp day here in Nova Scotia, and welcome to my channel, The Optimistic Gardener. My name is Steve Farley. So it's the end of June, it's Canada Day weekend here in Canada. It's been a bit of a damp and drizzly weekend really. It's actually reminded me of being back in the UK when all our bank holidays seem to be damp and drizzly. But you can't keep an optimistic gardener down, and it's about time I planted up some pumpkins and squash. I planted some winter squash a few days ago. I don't know if you can see behind me with that contraption up there. I did a video on that, some winter squash, some butternut squash. But I haven't planted any zucchini, or courgettes as we call it in Europe, and I haven't planted any pumpkins yet, and I haven't even planted any seeds in, to grow on earlier. I've actually found that it's really good getting your seeds in early, but things like pumpkins and squash, they like it hot. And even if I'd planted some early seedlings, the weather's actually not that warm yet. We've had a bit of a long spring here in Nova Scotia, so I can plant things up now, and as long as I give it the right growing conditions, really good compost with lots of rocket fuel in there, they'll do just as well as anything that's seedlings that you've planted up earlier anyway. So I thought I would do that this weekend. Now I've knocked up a couple of temporary raised beds. As you can see here, I've got this one here is going to be for my pumpkins, and this one here is going to be for the squash. And all I've done really is put 4 sides together, and I've lined the bottom with cardboard, as you can see, and that's it really. I'm just going to fill it up with my best compost that I've got, which is made up of seaweed, horse manure, and ordinary garden compost that I've had composting over the winter. This is really good stuff, really rich, and that's what pumpkins and summer squash need. Is they're really heavy feeders, and they love a really good rich mix. Now it doesn't matter if you haven't got seaweed. It could be, like I said, horse manure, really good compost, or buy some of the manures you can get in bags, and just get the heaviest mix that you can, or say the richest mix that you can get. And that's what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do for the first, I'm going to put a bit of just to say, which is what I'm growing. So I've got some summer squash golden delight, which is a sort of yellow zucchini, as you can see. Some ordinary green courgettes. These always grow, these grow like mad once they get going. And for my boy, I said I've got some, what's this one here? Pumpkin show entries, grower champion. Our famous seed collected from show entries weighing 500 to 1,000 pounds. So I thought I'd try to grow a big one for my boy. I don't actually eat pumpkins, I don't particularly like them, but come October and the end of the season, we all like pumpkins out all over the place. So I thought I'd see if I could grow a big one. I'm going to grow a few different ones anyway, but that's my main one. See if I can grow a big one. So let's get on with it. So like I said, this one's already filled up with a really good compost mix. But what I'm going to do on the top layer is just put a bit of ordinary potting compost as the top nice layer, just so my seedlings have got a nice flat area and a nice easy area to germinate, and then once they get going they can get their roots into the really rich mix and go for it. So let me fill up this this second big box here, and then I'll put the seeds in. said, I've just knocked these up temporary, and you know, they're not temporised wood or anything like that. They're just a bit of board that I've been given free, and I don't mind if they're temporary. And all this compost here, if I don't use it in these boxes again next year, I'll just move it to one of the flower beds and give them a good, that'll still have loads of feed in it and lots of organic matter to incorporate into my different beds next season. Blimey, only halfway full. I have to mix a bit of topsoil in here, which I didn't want to do, but it's quite a big area, so topsoil hasn't got much in the way of nutrients in it, but hopefully if I mix it in nicely, this has got all the nutrients, the compost that I need. Turn this over. Oh. So like I said, this compost has got seaweed in it, horse manure, cardboard, obviously all the other composting materials that I've had over winter. That's a really good rich mix, and like I said, pumpkins, squash, zucchini, which is just a summer squash really, they love a really rich mix and are very heavy feeders. Funny how humans always seem to underestimate, maybe that's because I'm the optimistic gardener, but underestimate how much stuff we need for a particular job. You would have thought, as I'm a project manager in real life, that I'd know about estimating, but when I looked at how much compost I had, I thought, oh yeah, that'll easily be enough. But it's amazing how much these boxes take. I think I've just got enough there. If I put a layer of bag compost, like I said, on top of that, that'll be just a chicken. Rings. We've had a very long, cool and rainy spring here in Nova Scotia, and the amount of mosquitoes there are out at the moment is just absolutely phenomenal. And of course we have the problem here in Nova Scotia now where we've lost 90% of our bats over the last few years to, I think it's called white nose syndrome or white nose something, but it's basically wiped out our bat population. So we haven't got them in the gardens even remotely controlling the mosquitoes, and coupled with the wet spring, they're a bit of a nightmare. Like I said, all I'm using this potting compost for is just a nice little mix to allow the pumpkins to germinate and get going, and then they can get their roots in amongst the good stuff. Ow. Right, so what am I going to do here? I am going to plant pumpkin show entries. I'm going to plant a couple of these, 1, 2 on this side, and then I'll let them run off down in the garden there. I've got a big enough area here to let them go. So 6 inches apart, 1 inch deep. There you go. Easy as that. Cool, you don't get many. 5 in a packet. Whoosh. Right. So 1 inch, I'll just push that in. 1 inch. I can actually go for 3 then if that's 6 inches apart. Do I do that? Let's put 1 there. So we've got 3 of them babies. Sheesh. Right, so summer squash. So I don't think I've grown these before. I don't think I use these. Blimey, you don't get many in here either. Let's plant 1, 2, 3 of them babies. Push them in. These zucchini, the old courgette, as I call it, they're just amazing how fast they grow, aren't they? And then when you're the actual fruit come, you're monitoring it, and then it's about that size, and then all of a sudden you miss a day, and it's turned into a whacking great marrow. So you've got to keep your eye on these babies. Got a few of these, but I do like a nice courgette. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Surrounded by mosquitoes. Okay, so I'll give these a water in. Hopefully it will start warming up a little bit, although the forecast isn't that good. But it's warm enough now for these to germinate. Let them get going and keep feeding them. Even though I've got a really heavy feed there, they both like lots of moisture. So keep the earth nice and damp. And I've got my seaweed compost tea that I use as fertiliser. I'll use that. I'll give them every week. I'll give them a feed with that, and just monitor to see how they're going. And obviously I'll report back to show you their progress. Job's a good one. So I think hopefully I'll show over the summer here that you don't need any sort of really posh container that's cost you loads of money to do. You know, this is a bit of scrap board that I've put together, and all it's got to do is hold the compost. You know, you need a really good rich mix of compost, but you can, you know, if you want to buy that from the store, you can do that. I'm lucky enough to have compost, a compost area that I can make quite a bit of compost with, and I live by the sea, so I can go down and get seaweed. But you know, you can go down the store, the shop, and get the sheep manure or cow manure or any sort of manure really. Give that a good mix in with your compost. It's a nice temporary container, and you can grow it. You know, if you haven't got much space, you can grow it up some sort of trellis type thing, which I might put on here, and I'll report back and show you about that as well. But you know, your pumpkins, you often, you know, you need a bit of room for them, but just go for it.